That was Martina McBride with Oh Holy Nights. This is Fargo Fun, where we talk about the fun things to do in Fargo. There's lots to do, always lots of different interesting events going on in Fargo, North Dakota. But, of course, it being the Christmas season, we are going to talk about Christmas service. We're here with Kevin Bauer, who's joined us from his church, which is Prairie Heights. We talked about that in the last segment, and we're going to talk about the Christmas service. So why don't you go ahead and tell us all about it, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. So Christmas service, like kind of in the next segment or the previous segment we talked about, is it's non-traditional service, but we do actually have 4 identical services this upcoming weekend on Saturdays and Sundays. Kind of a lot in that time. If you're coming to Fargo, you can spend time with your family on Christmas on the actual day on Monday. But we do have it's on Saturday at 4 and 6 p.m. and then also on Sunday at 9 and 11 a.m. So all services are very similar, but people really kind of pick what's most convenient for them, and you do get a variety of attendees that way. So we'll do that. And then also, as I mentioned, there's feel free to bring your whole family, because there's kid venture that you can definitely check your kids into, or they're welcome to join the service as well. But it's definitely very impactful, and it's always a moving service. I know I've invite friends that maybe just come on Christmas or on Easter. It's typically the most common times, but they really come back because of it, because they're like, well, that was just such a moving service. And kind of the background of it, we're doing a series on people that had really big impacts, Moses and Joseph, and then
in the service.
So we're kind of the theme more or less on that, but talk about biblical heroes, if you will, on that. And then also it goes to Christmas being the birth of Jesus Christ. So we do, that's kind of the focus on it, but we always talk about kind of that birth aspect of things, but also, bring in very relatable messages for those individuals, because for some churches, kind of a overwhelming thing. Or I know I've had some different comments from different people when I've invited them, and but I was reassuring them it's a very welcoming environment, and like I said, you can bring coffee into service, as well as get a lot of information. And the big thing I really like about it is you don't have to know everything. Like me going in, I grew up Catholic, did all the things, but I really wasn't, biblically sound. I would consider myself a Christian, but not like a huge, by the book situation of things. But they definitely met me where I'm at, and I'm obviously like anybody, we're not a finished product, but I just kind of like to invite people to service, because it's really changed my life, and I want people to also experience that and get closer with their families, whatever that be, because Christmas is a very joyous time for people, and sometimes there's a lot of despair and things that go with that. So I want to open to everybody in that situation.
So I've got a daughter who's 4 going on 5 years old. I asked her what she thought Christmas was about, and of course she said Santa Claus and presents and gifts and all this stuff. Because we are, my wife is Japanese. Sure. Like I said, I was raised Catholic, but I had stepped away. She had never even heard of the Jesus Christ figure, right? Sure. Which I thought was strange, to say the least, because it's the name of the holiday, right? Yeah. So I think it is an interesting idea to maybe bring them, just to see, from an outside perspective, bring them to a service, even, as an outsider, as somebody who hasn't been there in a long time. What would they expect? What would it be like for them coming in for their first time? Let's take that, my 5-year-old who has no concept of church, who's never been in a church. What is she going to experience? What's it going to be like for her? Can you maybe paint a picture of what that might feel like?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for her, it'll be excellent, and she'll walk in, and on the left side, when you walk in the doors, obviously you'll be greeted by a numerous amount of volunteers. But for her, she would be in the jungle, as we call it, and it's right, if you walk in the church, it's right on the left side, but there's a lot of interactive things to do, and they've made some adjustments over the last year or so, but it was always one of those things. I know my cousin, who's actually 6, that was his first thing when he attended. He was like, he wanted to go in there, and he was a little younger at the time, so it wasn't an age-appropriate spot for him with the bigger kids, whatever that looks like. But it's definitely a good time just for them to check it out, and they can meet other kids and just have that community, which is one of the big pillars, is just to choose community in that space.
So you don't normally have the kids sitting in the service. They go and they do their own kid thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so my cousin, actually, he hasn't, now he's able to go, but he comes every once in a while with things, but he usually attends with us. But sometimes it's, you get the little bit of agitation or whatever, or get the I don't know what you call it, get the wiggle worms, things like that. So sometimes it's easier for the parents to, they can watch the message and take it in a little easier if their kid isn't moving around a little bit. So it's kind of up to the parents' discretion, but there isn't like a rule or anything that goes with that. So. Yep.
So you said these are at what time now?
So services are at 9 and 11 on Sunday and 4 and 6 p.m. on Saturday.
Is there also going to be a midnight mass at all, or is that more of a Catholic thing?
That's traditionally a Catholic, or it's a Christian thing, but I know Catholic and Lutheran, it's very prominent in that.
Yeah.
We don't do a midnight mass.
Okay.
But we do, you're able to do live streaming things and do your own service, or not only on service, but you can
kind of rewatch it.
You can rewatch it if you want to. Do that. If that's
is that on YouTube
something.
Or where are those at? Where do you find those?
It's on the website.
Okay.
So if you go to prairieheights.com, you can watch the message. You can watch it as many times as you want, or if you want to archive certain messages or if you want to reference back on certain series, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Very good. And that's at prairieheights.com. I'll spell it for those. Prairie, that's kind of a hard word to spell. It's got a lot of PRAIRIEHEIGHTS. You could misspell that pretty easily.
You very much could.
If you wanted to. But so prairieheights.com, go there, check it out. We're moving on to our next segment, which is going to be Fargo Frequently Asked Questions. But first, Frank Sinatra with Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Don't go nowhere.